So that is the question that I would implore the listeners and young, new founders to really ask themselves, which is, do I want to build a rocket ship or a really, really great airplane? Because both are valuable, but they are built differently.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Elizabeth Gore. Welcome to The Big Idea from Yahoo Finance, the show that navigates the world of small business and entrepreneurship. As the co-founder of the small business funding platform Hello Alice, it has always been my mission to help ensure entrepreneurs have the tools they need to succeed. So let's cowboy up. Today's big idea question is, how do you know it's time to take on venture capital? Our industry focus will be startups. Joining me today to talk about this is Katelin Holloway, founding partner at venture capital firm 776, which she co-founded with my friend Alexis Ohanian. 776 is one of Silicon Valley's boldest venture capital firms. As a former leader at Reddit, Katelin is helping rewrite the rules of who gets funded. There's no one better to answer the big idea question of the day: how do I know when it's time to take venture capital? All right, Miss Katelin, welcome to The Big Idea. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely tickled to be here.
Well, howdy, and we need more of you and 776 types in the world.
That is deeply humbling. Thank you.
Well, I was so struck having Hello Us. We've raised, 4 rounds of venture capital, and y'all say that entrepreneurs are the new athletes. Oh my gosh, I love it. Tell me more.
I think it's true. There's always been an incredibly special place for entrepreneurs in I think the American economy and a big part of American culture. And as the world is getting smaller, as technology increases, as the world becomes more and more connected, we feel a deep sense of disconnection. And I think that there are a few things that I sincerely believe are going to be enduring. And one of those is going to be the entrepreneurial spirit. And so in order to maintain and balance that entrepreneurial spirit with the speed of the world around us, and that disconnection that we're feeling because we are so hyper-connected technologically, it does come down to marathon, right? It comes down to your ability to be agile, to be trained properly, to understand how to use the tools within your toolkit. All of those things fit very cleanly into the athlete mindset. And so endurance is something we think a lot about here.
And when you first meet a founder, I remember some of my early pitches, I had about 4 minutes, right? How do you see that spirit in them?
It's a good question. And I know that VCs oftentimes have kind of a bagged answer for this. And to be honest, I think that my answer is evolving. My responsiveness to this is changing. Personally, because of what we're talking about, right? The world is very different now than it was even a year ago. And because of this change, I think it's important that VCs, especially when we have these remote moments, 776 is completely remote. We're totally distributed. And so I'm meeting most of my founders for the first time, just like this, over a Zoom call. And I think that while it is hard to get some of the nuance, it's really not hard to see the spirit. And my career has been pretty windy, but I spent a good 15 years leading HR teams across different tech companies at various sizes and stages.
Reddit was one of your early ones, right?
It was. It actually was my last one.
Oh, wow.
That's where Alexis.
Good one to end on.
Oh, fantastic.
Your co-founder, Alexis Ohanian, you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Alexis was kind enough to extend a hand out to that one as they were rebuilding. And I was able to see that company through a ton of growth together with the leadership team there, from a company that was 10 years old and was kind of struggling on the revenue side and had seen a lot of leadership turnover and change. And, it was a company that needed support and a bit of a reboot. I was very grateful to be able to join them, and it was the ride of a lifetime. I was there for 4 years through some very significant growth on the people side, some significant growth on the technological side, and thankfully also on the revenue side, so that they were able to go all the way and take the company public. And so I say that only to share that I think that all of my years in building teams and helping support people through their growth and development within organizations has really allowed me to help develop, I won't say pattern matching because I think that it is different
Mhm.
today, like I said, but it has allowed me to better understand and read people very, very quickly and understand what drives and what motivates them. And so understanding why a founder, why an entrepreneur is going to spend the rest of their lives building something through the good, the bad, the ugly, and what it really looks like when things don't go right several times in a row. And again, talking about the athlete mentality, that endurance, how they're going to be able to stick through it and really kind of realize their potential.
You have no idea how much I appreciate that. I mean, I have PTSD from every round. It's like having kids where that wasn't so bad. It didn't hurt. And then you forget, oh, this is great. I'll do it again. And then series A, then B, and then C. You're like, ah. So we need more good folks like y'all. So for small biggest business owners, our big idea question today is, should I raise venture capital? And I'd love to just, how should a business owner think about, should I step into this new type of financing?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question, and the more I develop myself in my own career within this industry, the more I recognize not every business is at a stage or even will ever be at a stage where it makes sense to take on venture capital. And uh, I think it's important to note that, Alexis and I here at 776, our focus is early stage investing. And so this is that super early bet before you really have that product market fit. And in some cases, founders are able to build something and find that product market fit before they even take on a single penny, just because either of their own personal network, their own personal background and access to wealth or friends and family that are able to contribute in a meaningful way in order to help get them to that place where then they can go out and raise venture capital as more of an accelerant, right? But at 776, we really are looking for the founders who are still kind of tinkering. They're really trying to figure out what it is. They know that they have something. They know they have a great idea. They know that they wanna bring it to the world at large, but they need help and support getting there. And so, because sometimes we are as early as an idea is sketched out on the back of a napkin, which has happened. That's not just an analogy. You're sitting and you're talking with someone and you're watching their eyes light up, and it's something that they've been thinking about. It's living in the back of their brain, but maybe they're articulating it sometimes for the first time. And then you begin to develop that relationship and you say, I wanna help be the partner that brings this to life with you. And so I think because a lot of people just assume that you're taking venture capital once you have found product market fit, there is access to capital at an even earlier stage that makes sense sometimes.
Right, right.
And so I think that the truth is that most of the founders we back at 776 are still searching for that product market fit. And at the early stage, the capital isn't about scaling what's already proven. It's about buying yourself the time and the freedom to really experiment. And I think it's important to also note that if I view venture as oxygen for exploration, letting you test, learn, iterate, all of those things until you kind of really find what sticks, what really resonates with people, but like I said, it's not the right fuel for every business. Venture comes with an expectation of speed and scale. And so that is the question that I would implore the listeners and young, new founders to really ask themselves, which is, do I want to build a rocket ship or a really, really great airplane? Because both are valuable, but they are built differently. And so the right stage early investor isn't just betting on your product, they're betting on you, the person that is still tinkering in the garage or playing with an idea or going out and talking to people to understand how they're responding to what it is they want to build and bring to life. They're figuring it out. And it's long, long before typically the world really catches on. And so I think that's a very long-winded way of saying, understand for yourself what it is that you're trying to build, because not only do we expect speed and scale, I want to qualify the scale. We need to return our investment. And so every check that we write, we underwrite with the expectation that that money is going to come back to us, not just one-fold or twofold, but three, five, tenfold.
I love that you talked about the rocket ship or the airplane. We just had Wall Street Trapper on, who talked about Leon Howard. He talked about entrepreneurship is jumping out of the airplane and having faith that there's a parachute. So I think we're all in airplanes and rockets right now. So, obviously taking venture capital, you're giving up ownership or equity, a percentage of your company for investment. So that's, the more logistical side of it. But can you talk a little bit about the personal side? Because, I joke that it's even more commitment than marriage because you technically can't get divorced. I mean, you are in it. So tell me about the personal relationship with an investor.
I really appreciate this perspective because I think that a lot of both founders and VCs get this wrong. This is something that I see time and time again within the industry, within the ecosystem, is as a founder is developing their cap table, as they are bringing partners on to really, like I said, to fulfill their mission and to fulfill their potential, fundraising is hard. It is really hard, and
It's
the mis-
so hard. I
right.
just want to get in there. It's so hard. It's a job on top of a job.
It is, and it becomes all-consuming, and it can be deeply demoralizing even if you're winning. You're going out, you're putting yourself, your idea, your vulnerability out on the line, and you're selling not just your idea, but especially in the earliest days, you're selling yourself. Not selling your soul in an icky, creepy way, but you are
No, but
selling.
it's you or it's your baby, right? It's this is the most important thing in my life right now. Tell me if you like it or not. Do you want to buy it? And what's your critiques? Like, who does that? It's so hard.
It is one of the most vulnerable positions one can be in. And you're sitting there to talk about having a baby. You're sitting there, gown open, doctor in the room, and you're
Right?
the stirrups, and you're like, yep,
This just got weird. This just got weird.
exactly. Exactly. And then they tell you no. And you hear no, and you hear no, and you hear no again. And finally somebody says yes. And then to your point, your brain kind of deletes the negative memories because you finally have made it. You've made it out of the woods. You're on your way. You're on your journey. And then you have to go back into the woods. And all of those feelings come back when you're putting yourself out on the line again. And I say that somewhat dramatically to say and to share, I can understand very easily how a founder would take money from where it comes. And I try to advise founders exactly what you said. This is a marriage. This is a deep relationship, minimum 10-year commitment, especially at the earliest stages, minimum. And so be picky, be particular. It's okay to be discerning. And oftentimes founders look me dead in the eyes back and they say, I can't afford to be particular.
Mm.
It's either I take the money from the available source or I give up. And I don't think that is always true, but I believe that is how it feels.
All right, we'll have Katelin hold that thought. We'll be right back here on The Big Idea. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to The Big Idea. I'm Elizabeth Gore with Katelin at 776. What can you learn from the no's?
This is where I would challenge founders to call investors to task. This is not going to do me any favors within the VC community, and I'm totally okay with that. But I think something that in general investors are very bad at is giving helpful feedback. I think that, and oftentimes I think they're bad at being clear and saying no half the time. I think that VCs like to preserve optionality. I think that in general, many investors are not good at saying no directly and clearly fast enough. But once they do, that's just a nitpick. This is where I think that founders should absolutely call investors to task. Don't just say, hey, it's not a right fit at this time, or don't take hours of my time pitching and then come back and say, oh, there's a conflict in the portfolio. Don't come back and say, hey, I couldn't get IC to conviction. a lot of founders, because it is a game, and you also, this world is so small, you potentially are going to be knocking on this door again. And so as a founder, you want to make sure that that door potentially can stay open, or can swing both ways over time. But I think some of the very best founders will actually challenge and say, I'd like to learn more. Even saying, would you mind jumping on another Zoom call or a phone call or grab another coffee with me? I really would like to better understand why this isn't the right fit. What part of this wasn't resonating for you? Was it you couldn't get to conviction on total addressable market? Is it something that I'm doing the way I'm presenting? Is it your concern about our ability to sell, or maybe a talent gap on the team right now? Because when you ask an investor to articulate their thinking, what I had discovered is sometimes, one, hopefully you learned something, right? Great, I have a blind
Great
spot.
feedback, yeah.
Yes, please. And coming from a place of sincerity and authenticity and thoughtfulness is the best thing you can demand of an investor, because you also will be able to understand what they might show up like as that long-term partner, or when we say it's personal. And so they might not be the right fit right now, but they might be the fit later on.
Absolutely.
So understanding how they're going to show up for you even in that moment, because asking a founder to share their most vulnerable selves and then getting a no, I think there's a duty and an obligation to come back and give that support and show partnership, demonstrate that partnership, even if it's not the right fit, even if it may never be the right fit. And so
Absolutely.
challenge them, go back, ask.
I love that advice. On our show, we love to talk about the dirty unicorn. So the biggest mistakes that we've done in business, we can all learn from. So what is some of them, or one from 776?
There are several. And
We all make a lot.
exactly. And I think that anyone tells you otherwise is full of it. We're all learning, right? And I think that there's a few things that I can think of off the top of my mind. One of them is something that's really challenging as an early stage investor is making assumptions about a product, a founder, or a market going into a pitch. And so having kind of this preconceived idea of what it is that the founder is actually trying to achieve because of your own lived experiences, or because of something that you have read, a thought piece that you've read. We took a pitch the other day. Actually, no, I'll go back further. We didn't take a pitch the other day. We had an inbound request, and the assumption was made across my team kind of broadly that this particular business had low margins. And so because of that, the pitch was not initially taken. It came to me a few different ways, and it was one of those things where I slept on it, and I woke up the next day and I was still thinking about it, and that kind of went on a few times, and I was like, I have to listen to this. Like, I need to understand what it is that, why does this keep coming up for me? Typically we take pitches collectively, collaboratively. But I was like, I'm just going to hear this one out. And so it was a really small room, and this founder absolutely demonstrated something very, very different that at first blush, the team at large was not picking up. I wasn't, but there was just a little je ne sais quoi. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need to know. And after we took the pitch, we were very compelled and we were very moved. And so we brought the whole team together. And after that pitch, we did wind up actually making that investment. But had we just left it alone at, I think we know what that market is, we think we understand what that product is, and here's why we believe it won't work. We were moved, right? We were emotionally moved to say, I think we were thinking about this wrong. And so the feedback to that founder then became, you got to lead with X, Y, and Z, because otherwise you're going to get lumped in this other bucket.
Right.
And the lesson internally was, don't make assumptions.
That's a really good dirty unicorn. Don't make assumptions. I want to close on going all the way back to our big idea question. What are two things that a small business owner should think about before they take venture capital?
Okay, going back to our airplane analogy here, do you want to build a rocket ship, or do you want to build a really beautiful airplane? And I think it really comes down to economics for yourself, your access to not just capital, but to network, to opportunity. And so oftentimes I think the founders that know how to play the game within venture sometimes get ahead of themselves because they get really good at the game and they get really good at the system. They maybe are thinking a little bit less about what their business actually needs and thinking more about the the process or the experience of fundraising consecutive rounds back to back to back, because there is a lot of glory in that. There's a lot of recognition and ego in that to demonstrate, like, "Hey, world, I'm successful. I'm able to do this." And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with continuing to take on venture capital either, but I think that sometimes you get lost, and you need to really investigate your business, your product, your customers, and your capacity to really bring that to life in the right way for that particular product. Because having a really beautiful airplane that you have complete control over sometimes is 100% the right answer. And that's okay. Maybe you are not trying to take people to the moon. Maybe you are simply trying to take them cross country on the most luxurious experience they've ever been on,
I'm just
right?
trying to get to the grocery store.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think better understanding what your deficit is. And again, sometimes it is capital and access to money. Other times it's access to network and to say, like, how do I get in touch with my, not just the customers I have today, but my next set of customers? Or how do I find and unlock talent because I'm not from this particular world. This is something maybe that I pivoted into. And so I need access to better understanding, better insights, and better talent, whether that is inside of my company or surrounding and advising my company. And so I would challenge young entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, people who are still developing in what it means to really build a sustainable, scalable business, really understand what your gaps are so that you can serve it appropriately, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But when it does, like we said earlier, please make sure that you are bringing on the right partners. Do what you can to have access to people who are values aligned, who are passion aligned, who are going to be with you through thick and thin, the ones that you will feel comfortable calling at 2 a.m. when something has gone awry. It is more than a marriage. It is a partnership, and it is co-parenting this product, your baby, and bringing it into the world.
Oh,
So
Katelin, I appreciate you so much. You and Alexis, you're the good ones. Thank you for investing in great companies at 776, and most of all, thanks for coming on The Big Idea.
thank you so much for having me. This was pure joy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katelin, for coming on the show, and thank all of you for joining us. We hope you learned a lot. This has been The Big Idea from Yahoo Finance. Please make sure to scan the QR code below to follow Yahoo Finance podcasts, or check us out at The Big Idea wherever you get your podcasts. You can also come say howdy to me at all of my social channels at Elizabeth Gore USA. I'm Elizabeth Gore, and as all my grandmother used to say, hold your head up high and give them hell. See you soon.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.